Let's now examine the second postmodern discourse. First, look at this image of a locomotive.
Now, this is the Christian paradigm. Biblical fact first, faith and feeling. Don't emphasize feelings, they say. So it may not be completely adequate biblically, but that's pretty much how we believe. We start with the biblical fact and faith and feeling. That's Christian paradigm. What about modernism? Well, modernism, again, represented by children of the Enlightenment, like Voltaire, Hegel, like Kant, Feuerbach, they would privilege fact, empirical or ideal fact, but they would completely discard faith, and feeling is inferior emotion. They would not consider feeling to be of any importance, so they were emotional, stiff, cold, and calculation. And following modernism came the period of romanticism. These are people who value feeling, a lot of poets like Wordsmith, Shelley. These are some of the people who marked the romanticizing the Greek culture of the past. And they didn't think much about fact, but it was all about feeling. This is very important that we recognize this, because postmodernism, you see, postmodernism is protest against modernism. Now, don't think that postmodernism is coming after us. Well, they think that we're already dead anyway. They're coming after modernists, the kind of people that Francis Schaeffer was writing against in the 70s and 80s. Postmodernism is actually a type of romanticism. It's feeling-driven. Facts? Whose facts? It is romanticizing Marxism. It follows modernism of facts only. They're tired of cold, calculated facts. And there's no one who represents postmodernity better than our congresswoman from New York City, Ocasio-Cortez. She said this is about a year ago. There is a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right. She read an article and she completely misunderstood it, but used it to say that spending more money on defense than Medicare is immoral. So she was called out. It was Anderson Cooper of CNN, secular liberal, and when she was called upon on it, she basically said, being morally right is more important than being factually correct. So there is no fact to be considered. Certainly there's no faith. It's all about feeling and feeling bold.
The ancient Greek historian Thucydides once said, ignorance is bold. The Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, who doesn't care for facts, is certainly
bold. But is she effective? Is she passing laws? Recently, there was a study done on effectiveness of all the Congress people in our Congress, and it was revealed that AOC, one of the least effective members of Congress, she has passed no law. Now, on the one hand, she's very influential. Whatever she says goes with millions of her followers, but in fact, what she's supposed to do, passing law, she passed no law. And this article said she is the queen of Twitter, but less successful at lawmaking. But she's morally right. Her version of morality.
Even if in reality you aren't doing much except virtue signaling through tweeting or Instagram. What am I saying? I'm suggesting that
postmodernism is feeling morally right. It's action. Being morally right, not factually correct. Feeling morally right is action. That is postmodernism, post-truth. And our people are like this. Anderson Cooper, as I said before, secular liberal, secular humanist, he said to her, but being factually correct is important. What he meant was being empirically correct is important. Faith is unnecessary. This is a very critical point. So what does this mean that feeling moral is action? Well, let's go back to that when I talk about what church should do in response to all the things that are happening. So postmodern discourse, first discourse is only culture, no nature, cultural relativism. The second discourse is morality not bound by facts.
Presently, the two telling examples of morality not bound by facts, in my opinion, are these. First, many of the people who were morally outraged at Brett Kavanaugh for being nominated for Supreme Court Justice because of his alleged sexual aggression that occurred some 30 years before when he was in high school, have been silent over New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who is facing multiple accusations of sexual aggression that allegedly happened in the past few years, not 30 years ago. The facts obviously don't matter here, only the feeling of moral outrage selectively expressed for political reasons. Another good example is Asian American pastors publicly calling for lamenting and grieving over the killing of several Asian women at the hands of a white assailant in Atlanta, but not saying much when a week later, 10 white people were gunned down in Colorado by non-white assailant. What does this have to do with morality not bound by fact? To the believers, one undeniable spiritual fact is that all humans, because they are made in God's image, are precious in God's sight. And fundamentally, the servants of God are ambassadors from heaven. They are not some spiritual heads of their own tribe. So when these spiritual facts are ignored, we end up resorting to virtue signaling, which is to say, we really are not that interested in biblical justice.
Morality not bound by facts begets fact-free moral relativism. Feeling moral is action. People who are allowed in the church make the life of a pastor very miserable. But are they doing anything? But to them, crying out, complaining, that is action. That's an area that we need to address. It's called virtue signaling.
That concludes the third session. Now take a moment to consider the two discussion questions, but before doing that, please review a short summary of all that has been talked about. In the following section, we will address the third postmodern discourse. Thank you.